Hello everyone, in the previous episode we saw Tuna's mother-in-law vanish without a trace while carrying the baby. No one knows where she went or what her intentions are. So, what will Tuna do to find her child? Let's follow today's new developments. The next morning, Alex took Tuna along with the police to her mother-in-law's old house. The path leading to the house was silent, with only the sound of wind rustling through the dense rows of bamboo on both sides. Every step Tuna took felt as heavy as walking on 1,000 stones. She had barely slept the entire night, her eyes swollen from crying, her heart trembling with the desperate hope of finding even the slightest clue about her baby. Standing before the rusted gate, Tuna's heart tightened at the sight. The house was blotched with moss, the wooden fence tilted, and weeds had overrun the path. The air was desolate, abandoned, as if forgotten for ages. The cawing of crows on the roof only deepened the eerie atmosphere. Instead of finding her mother-in-law, a middle-aged man stepped out from the porch. His face was weathered by the sun, his posture worn, his cautious gaze falling on the unfamiliar visitors. When the police greeted him, he slowly replied, "The old lady you're asking about has already left. I haven't seen her return for over a month. This house has been empty, she asked me to watch over it." Those words pierced straight into Tuna's heart like a dagger. She staggered, tears welling up, and choked out, "No, it can't be. Where did she go? Did she take a newborn with her? That baby is mine." The man looked uneasy, avoiding Tuna's pleading gaze. Twisting the brim of his hat in his hands, he shook his head. "I really don't know. That day she left in a rush, carrying only a few bags. No one knew where she was heading." The silence pressed down, broken only by the sorrowful rustling of bamboo leaves. Alex held Tuna's shoulder tightly to steady her. The police quickly conferred and decided to search the house. The wooden door creaked open, sending up a cloud of dust. Inside, the rooms were dark and damp, old furniture draped in dust that revealed no one had lived there for a long time. The officers carefully inspected every corner, noting down unusual details. During the search, Alex noticed a small cloth tucked in a corner. He picked it up and froze for a moment. There was a familiar scent of milk. Tuna's eyes widened, and she rushed over, trembling as she touched the cloth before breaking down into sobs, as if she had grasped the last trace of her baby's warmth. The entire house fell into silence, all eyes fixed on the small cloth. A fragile spark of hope lit up in Tuna's heart, but with it came an even greater fear. If her baby had been here, then where was the child now? Who was holding her? Was she still safe? After a thorough search that yielded no further clues, the group had no choice but to leave. The afternoon sun cast golden rays through the bamboo, stretching their shadows long across the deserted dirt road. Tuna walked as if in a daze, tears falling endlessly. The hope she had clung to shattered in an instant, leaving behind only suffocating despair. Alex walked silently at her side, his hand holding hers firmly, giving her a glimmer of warmth. A police officer spoke gently. "Ms. Na, I understand your feelings. Even though we don't have clear leads today, we will not give up. The force will expand the investigation and do everything possible to bring your child back." Hearing those words, Tuna's tearful eyes glistened with a faint trace of faith. Alex added firmly, "Na, trust me. We will find our baby. We will never give up." The road back was steeped in loneliness, but within Tuna's heart, a small flame still flickered, the flame of hope. And it was this flame that would keep her standing, walking forward alongside Alex and those dedicated people, in search of her own flesh and blood. After leaving the desolate house in despair, the tears on Tuna's cheeks had yet to dry. Though the police advised her to rest while they continued to widen their investigation, How could a mother's heart ever be at peace when her child was still missing without a trace? Sitting on the back of the motorbike, Tuna's shoulders trembled with every breath. Seeing her despair, Alex gently took her cold hand in his and made a sudden decision: he wouldn't take her straight home. Instead, he turned the bike in another direction, circling the nearby area in hopes that someone might have seen something unusual. The dirt road stretched endlessly between rippling green rice fields. Under the shade of old bamboo groves, a few small houses nestled quietly, with wisps of evening smoke rising from afar. At every roadside stall and household porch, Alex stopped to ask without hesitation: "Has anyone seen an old woman carrying a newborn pass by here?" Most people only shook their heads, some even looking surprised, saying they hadn't seen strangers around in a long time. Hearing that, Tuna's face grew even more desolate. Noticing it, Alex squeezed her hand and said firmly, his voice warm, "Don't give up, nah. We'll keep asking, keep searching. Someone is bound to remember." By late afternoon, as the sunlight faded, they stopped under an ancient banyan tree where a small tea stall stood. The stall owner, an elderly woman with silver hair and a frail frame but sharp, clear eyes, listened carefully to Alex's question. She furrowed her brows, thought for a moment, then slowly answered. "Over half a month ago, I did see an old lady carrying a baby pass by. The child was crying so loudly, it broke my heart. I remember it clearly because it was such a rare sight." At those words, Tuna's body jolted. Her hands clutched at her blouse, and with a choked voice she asked, Do you remember which way they went?" The old woman pointed toward the road leading to the town. "I saw them heading that way. They seemed in a hurry, didn't speak to anyone." A spark of light suddenly pierced through the darkness. Tuna's tearful eyes turned to Alex, her voice trembling with emotion. "That must be our baby. He's still so little, it must be Harry." Alex nodded, determination blazing in his eyes. He quickly thanked the old woman, helped Tuna back on the bike, and said in a firm voice, "Nah, we must go now. No matter how dark it gets, I'll take you to find him." The motorbike sped down the road toward the town. Night had already fallen, cold wind slashing their skin, the headlight casting eerie beams across the roadside bushes, thickening the darkness. On the back seat, Tuna clung tightly to Alex's back, her heart burning with one single desire: to find her child. They stopped at every lit place they came across, late-night eateries, corner shops, even lone passers-by, asking for clues. Many shook their heads, but a few vaguely recalled seeing an old woman carrying a baby, stories that echoed the details the banyan tree stall owner had mentioned. By the time they reached the town, it was late into the night. Dim yellow streetlights cast their glow on the near-empty streets. People hurried past, minding their own business, paying no attention to an old woman with a baby. Tuna's eyes scanned every face, her heart pounding wildly with each burst of hope followed by crushing disappointment. Alex pulled over by the roadside, turned to face her tear-stained eyes, and said with resolute firmness, "Nah, we can't keep searching alone like this. Tomorrow I'll report it to the police right away. But tonight, let's make one more round. There might still be something out there." Tuna nodded faintly. Exhaustion weighed on her body, but her eyes still shone with determination. The road ahead was uncertain and grueling, but as long as even the faintest trace remained, she would not allow herself to give up. The motorbike roared to life once more, weaving through streets of shadow and light. Their night-long search for the child was filled with peril, yet also carried a fierce hope blazing in a mother's heart. That night, Tuna could barely sleep. Each time she closed her eyes, she was plunged into broken dreams where Harry's cries echoed in the darkness. The baby's tiny hands flailed weakly, his voice calling for his mother in unconscious desperation. She kept running toward him, but the further she ran, the more distant his figure became, until even his cries faded into silence. In the midst of her nightmare, Tuna cried out aloud, her voice choked with sobs. "Harry, don't leave me. I'll find you." Alex woke with a start and immediately turned to see Tuna trembling, her face pale, sweat soaking her hair. He placed a steady, warm hand on her shoulder and murmured, "Nah, calm down. It's just a dream. I'm here, everything will be all right." Her eyes opened wide, still clouded as if trapped in the nightmare. She clutched the blanket tightly, desperate to anchor herself to reality. Tears streamed down her face as she repeated over and over, "My baby. I have to find my baby." Without a word, Alex wrapped his arms around her small shoulders, letting her tears soak his shirt. He stayed by her side all night. Each time she whimpered or stirred from another nightmare, he gently comforted her until she collapsed back into exhausted sleep. The dim glow of the bedside lamp revealed the sorrow etched into Alex's eyes. His heart ached for Tuna, this young mother battling grief, forced to endure a pain no one should ever have to bear. And silently, he made a vow, though not bound by blood, he would stay with her and help her reclaim her child, no matter the cost. The night stretched endlessly. Outside, the wind howled across the roof tiles, seeping through every dark crevice. Inside, there was only Tuna's broken breathing, her sobs, and Alex's quiet whisper of resolve. "I promise, we will find Harry." When dawn finally arrived, pale light filtered through the dusty window. Alex had already risen early. Truthfully, he had not slept at all. Each time Tuna called out Harry's name in her fevered dreams, his heart clenched tighter. Images of the fragile infant haunted him, fueling his desperate wish for daylight to come so their search could continue. He quietly went to the kitchen, lit the gas stove, and cooked a pot of plain porridge. The steam rising from it filled the small house with warmth, pushing back the chill of the long night. He boiled a few eggs, poured a glass of warm milk, simple things, but prepared with care and worry. Watching the porridge bubble, Alex let out a heavy sigh. Questions tormented him. Was Harry being fed right now? Was someone holding him, or was he crying himself hoarse in unfamiliar arms? At that thought, Alex's eyes burned with unshed tears. When he returned to the room, Tuna had just woken. Her face was gaunt, dark circles shadowing her eyes after a sleepless night. Setting down the tray, Alex forced a small smile to lighten the heavy air. "Nah, eat something. You'll need your strength to keep searching for Harry." Tuna looked at him, her eyes brimming. She bit her lip and nodded slightly. Deep down, she knew Alex was just as worried as she was, but he kept standing firm, giving her something to lean on. Outside, the crow of roosters rang out, and a few early morning vehicles rattled down the road. A new day had begun. In the small room, the two of them shared a simple bowl of hot porridge, swallowing not just food but also a fragile, burning hope. Today, at any cost, they had to find another trace of Harry. After finishing the hot bowl of porridge, Tuna felt as though her body had regained a little strength. She gently wiped away the tears lingering at the corner of her eyes, her gaze becoming clearer and more resolute. Seeing the change, Alex nodded, a fierce determination rising in him as well. Not a second could be wasted. He quickly packed a few necessities, a bottle of water and some dry food in case they had to travel far. Then he wheeled the motorbike out to the yard, his voice firm yet full of encouragement. "Nah, let's go. Today, we must find more traces of Harry." Tuna nodded softly. Her hands still trembled, but she clung tightly to the seat, as if grasping onto her last shred of hope. In her mind, the fear still burned. Harry was too young, unable to speak, unable to protect himself. "My child, are you still safe?" The road leading into the town was much busier that morning. Vendors called out from newly opened stalls, and the roar of engines mixed with the bustling crowd. Alex drove slowly, stopping at each intersection and every shop front to ask with a steady, determined voice. "Has anyone seen an old woman carrying a newborn pass through here recently?" At first, most only shook their heads or looked puzzled. But as they pressed deeper into the central market, the atmosphere grew more animated. A few vendors whispered, and soon several began to recall. Indeed, there had been a strange old woman who appeared, always carrying a baby in her arms, hurrying along as if afraid of being noticed. Hearing this, Tuna jolted, clutching Alex's sleeve with teary eyes, her voice trembling. "Did you hear that? It could be him, it could be Harry." Alex gently squeezed her hand, his eyes blazing with conviction. He quickly turned to one of the vendors, speaking urgently yet respectfully. "Which way did she go? Do you remember clearly?" The vendor thought for a moment, then pointed toward the road leading to the old bus station at the edge of town. "I saw her heading that way. She was moving quickly, didn't talk to anyone." At those words, Tuna's heart pounded wildly, each beat threatening to burst from her chest. Alex too felt his blood surge, as though a fire was driving him forward. Without hesitation, he revved the engine, racing toward the old bus station, the place that might hold the answer to their days of despair, and the fragile spark of hope to bring their child back. The motorbike stopped in front of the old bus station, once bustling but now left with only a few scattered long-distance routes. The grounds were worn and faded, walls peeling with age, waiting benches darkened by layers of dust. Only a few roadside stalls were still open, their dim lights spilling weakly into the courtyard. In one corner, several drivers huddled together, puffing smoke and chatting idly. Alex helped Tuna off the bike. She stood frozen, her eyes scanning the scene as if trying to tear through the invisible veil hiding her child's whereabouts. A child's cry echoed from one corner, stabbing at her heart. She rushed over, only to find it was just another family soothing their baby, nothing to do with her own. Alex took the initiative to ask a few of the drivers, but their answers were all the same. No one had noticed anything, nothing unusual. Meanwhile, Tuna felt herself pulled by an indescribable instinct. Step by heavy step, she walked along the waiting hall. Suddenly, her eyes widened, her body stiffened. Beneath a rotting wooden bench, something small lay hidden in a thin layer of dust, a pale blue woolen sock. Her whole body trembled. She crouched down, her hand shaking as she picked it up. Her fingers clenched so tightly they turned white, her breath coming in short gasps. Tears welled up as her voice broke into sobs. "Alex, this belongs to Harry. I knitted it myself before giving birth, there's only one pair." Alex rushed over, studied the object carefully, and nodded, his expression taut. The faint scent of milk still lingered on the sock, undeniable proof that Harry had been here, and not too long ago. Tuna's heart felt like it was shattering. Tears streamed down as she pressed the tiny sock against her chest, clutching it as if holding her baby's very presence. Alex placed a firm hand on her shoulder, his voice resolute. "Nah, this is the clearest lead we've had so far. Harry was here. We must report this to the police right away so they can focus the search." Amid the decaying bus station and the indifferent passers-by, that moment for Tuna felt like a door had just creaked open. The sacred bond of motherhood had pulled her one step closer to her child. Fragile hope now burned brighter, driving her forward on the journey ahead, no matter how dark and tear-stained the road might still be. After finding the woolen sock, Tuna could barely stand, yet her eyes shone with a glimmer of hope. Alex gently squeezed her shoulder and looked around. The old bus station, though quiet, still had a few food stalls and tea stands serving long-distance travelers. He guided Tuna to a small drink stall near the gate, where a middle-aged woman was tidying up a stack of cups. Alex politely asked, "Excuse me, have you seen an old woman carrying a baby pass through here recently?" She might have looked hurried, maybe unfamiliar. The vendor furrowed her brow, paused for a moment, then nodded. "I think so. A few days ago, I remember seeing a thin old woman holding a baby. The baby was crying a lot. She was in a rush, heading toward the end of the station, like she was looking for a bus." Tuna's heart clenched instantly. She trembled as she asked, her voice breaking, Do you know which bus she got on? Or if anyone was with her?" The woman shook her head. "I'm not sure. I only saw her asking a few drivers, then she disappeared. After that, I got busy selling and didn't notice anymore." Alex thanked her and quickly led Tuna to another stall. An elderly man selling cigarettes by the porch also confirmed that he had seen an old woman carrying a baby, flustered, asking for directions to a nearby town. Hearing this, Tuna squeezed Alex's hand, her eyes blazing through tears. He answered with a resolute nod. Now, the small pieces were beginning to connect, the sock, the sound of a crying child, and the witnesses' accounts. Alex said firmly, his voice steady and resolute. "Nah, we're closer now. She couldn't have gone far without someone noticing. We must report this to the police and also check other bus stations. We will find Harry." In the rundown bus station, hope flared once again. Tuna wiped her tears and nodded strongly. Though the road ahead was still uncertain, she knew she wasn't alone. Alex was beside her, and her mother's love would guide her to her child. When the evidence of the sock and the witnesses' testimonies were presented, the atmosphere changed immediately. Alex quickly contacted the police and relayed all the details. In no time, the authorities arrived to cordon off the area and extend the investigation to nearby bus stations. Small groups were dispatched in multiple directions. Some combed the area around the station, questioning drivers and vendors. Others rushed to secondary bus stations to verify which bus the old woman had taken. Alex and Tuna didn't stay still either. They went from stall to stall, street corner to street corner, asking anyone who might have seen the child. Tuna's face showed layers of exhaustion, but in her eyes still burned the fire of determination. Alex stayed close by, supporting her spirit and reinforcing her faith. A young police officer, after gathering statements from several drivers, came back to reassure Tuna. "Please don't worry, ma'am. We'll do everything we can. The baby is so young, surely people will notice. It won't be easy for them to vanish. The more people involved, the greater the chance we'll find him." Hearing those words, Tuna bowed her head in tears, this time not only of despair, but also of gratitude and hope. Everyone, from Alex to the police, was fighting for Harry. In everyone's heart was the same wish, to find Harry at all costs, and to pray that he was still safe, unharmed. Urgency filled the old bus station, but within the tension spread a shared belief, no matter how faint the trail, love and determination would bring them closer to the child. Will Tuna find baby Harry? Stay tuned for the next episode.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay lại với video của mình. Hôm nay thì mình đưa đến với mọi người những video tiếp theo trên kênh. Ở trên kênh của mình thì thường sẽ lên những video về nội dung của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca, hoặc là mẹ đơn thân Lý Tử La, hoặc là Lý Tử Diệp. Thì mình hy vọng rằng sẽ nhận được nhiều hơn nữa sự ủng hộ và đóng góp ý kiến của mọi người cho kênh của mình, cũng như là sẽ được nhiều người biết đến hơn. Mình hy vọng rằng mọi người có thể chia sẻ kênh của mình cho những người khác để mọi người cũng có thể xem được những video ở trên kênh của mình. Và trong khoảng thời gian gần đây thì kênh của mình thì đang cái lượng tương tác khá là thấp. Mình hy vọng rằng là nếu như mọi người xem video thì mọi người hãy để lại một tương tác ở trên video hoặc trên kênh của mình bằng cách là để lại bình luận hoặc là like video, hoặc là có thể chia sẻ video này đến những người khác. Và sự ủng hộ của mọi người thì sẽ là động lực rất lớn để mình có thể ra video đầy đủ cũng như là hay hơn. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều.